Masiphathise mawethu kwindawo ngendawo enibukeleni kuzo. Sinamkele kwisiqendu sethu sale veki senkqubo Yilungelo Lakho, It's Your Right. Siniphathele yona apha ke ku-SABC1 Mzansi for sure. Kwalapha kule nkqubo siza kunuvulela iminxeba ukuba nani nivakalise ezenu imbono. Inombolo zethu apha studio zithi 011 714 6918 okanye ku-011 714 6919. I-email yethu ithi consumer@sabc.co.za okanti ke ungasifumana na ku-Facebook or Twitter. South Africans have a poor saving record, but the Banking Association of South Africa and its partners has joined efforts in trying to reverse this state of affairs. This week, their campaign took the message to the next generation of consumers. And these are children at schools in the Free State province. The message was packaged in a way that resonates with this generation.
The economic downturn that so many consumers landing in financial ruin glaringly exposed how bad South African consumers are at saving for rainy days. According to the Banking Association of South Africa, less than 15% of the population saves. This has dire consequences for the country's economic growth.
We're part of the BRICS group. So if we compare ourselves to China, to India, to Brazil, we in the vicinity of about 13-14%, they running at 38, 40, 50%. So we compare very unfavorably to our peers, and that's why those countries are able to grow, because they have savings, they can use their national savings to actually grow the countries, and they borrow less than we do.
In a bid to reverse this trend, the industry launched a financial literacy program aimed at instilling a culture of saving in children. Thus far, close to 1 million learners have been taught how to save. Among the teachers are prominent role models and renowned communicators whose fame and style of communicating the message resonates with the youth.
We need to do something until it becomes a habit so that it's not difficult anymore. Saving is difficult. It's like somebody who has to go to the gym. When you go to for the first time, the second time, I swear, nonsense, they tell me it's fun. But the more you do it, the more wonderful you feel. And when you save, the more you understand. This thing is so important. This thing makes my heart beat faster. It makes me dream big dreams. It makes me feel like I am capable of doing things that I wouldn't be able to do if I didn't save. So we need to save and save until it becomes a habit.
In this year's launch, more than 300 young learners from different schools were invited to a 2-day camp in the Free State province. Speakers and experts stressed the need to learn early, as doing so later may be impossible. Popular financial literacy games were also used to instill curiosity about saving for rainy days.
I will try to save money so that when I go to university, I will not to struggle and to go to the loan and loan the money.
If benginayo lemfundiso, I think ingabe bekuzokwenza ukuthi indlela engiphatha ngayo imali ibe leyo eqeqeshekile, ngoba bengizokwazi izizathu zezinto engizenzayo nezinto engafanele ngizenze. So lapho bengizobe ngikhona namhla bekuzobe kusendaweni ehlakaniphile, ehluzekile, engcono.
The Provincial Department of Education commended this intervention, saying it would go a long way in ensuring that South Africa has a stable financial future.
This initiative is actually saying to them, this is how in real terms, in real world, this is going to translate in itself as you grow up, as you interact with life itself. As you go to the bank, as you go to the shops, and you have this much money that you have to spend, this is how much money you can at least save, and these are the values for saving. So bringing the outside world into the classroom is actually making more learning interesting, and it's actually lifelong learning.
The Banking Association of South Africa might have spent a great deal of money hosting the financial literacy campaign this week, but what it aims to achieve in the long run puts these costs in a totally different perspective, where future consumers would not have to worry about how to put the next plate of food on the table. Yilungelo Lakho.
Siyabulela ngelo nqaku esilenzelwe ke nguvuyisile Mdoda. To take our discussion further, masamkela uTsilani Mleba ovela kwiziko elikhuthaza ukongiwa kwemali, South African Savings Institute. Samkele ke noMandla Zwane yena omele South African Banking Association. Sibe nayo no Precious Ngayana ovela kumbutho olwela amalungelo abathengi iConsumer Fair. Ladies, gentlemen, welcome to Yilungelo Lakho. Let me start off with you, Tsilani. As you heard on our insert, our intro, we said South Africa has a very poor culture of saving, and one study which was done, produced some interesting yet frightening statistics around financial planning in the country. How big a problem do we have in the country?
It's huge. It's humongous. South Africans really do not save. And it starts basically at home, at the individual level, all the way throughout several institutions are high up. It's such a big problem that government, business, everybody's gotten together, tried and try and see how we can solve this problem. One major problem about this is the level of literacy, financial literacy individuals have, and it's very low. It is said that basically people do not know how to manage their finances, and even if they do, to a certain extent, they don't have the skills to implement that knowledge. It's such a problem that we're still trying to figure out how we can really get to the heart of the matter and change people, their behavioral patterns and their issues at an individual level.
What do comparative studies show? I mean, I understand that China and countries like India save more, even though the wages might be low, but the understanding is that they save more than we save here in the country.
I'll give you an example. China is at 50% savings rate. That means people have saved basically 50% of their salaries or more in their savings, or more. South Africa is at 1.7. We're basically at almost zero.
I remember reading somewhere that we are 72, we're ranking 72 in this regard. Daduzwane ndiyakubona uyavuma. Inkulu kangakanani le ngxaki?
Le ngxaki inkulu kakhulu man. Umbheki South Africa as a whole asibeki imali. Into siyaziyo ukuthi sidle imali. Into sijwayele ukuthi siyofuna isikweleti phezulu kwesinye isikweleti. Siyasilanda nje isikweleti noma singasidingi. Noma ngakho sidingo sesikweleti uyavela uphume nje na uhambe ngoba ku-easy ukuthola isikweleti. Uvela uhambe uthatha isikweleti. And uyisebenzise lo mali uyisebenzisele something else engafanelanga ukuthi ngabe uyisebenzisele something else so that you cannot actually even kusasa mawuvuka ekseni kusasa uthi ngenzeni ngale mali. That's the problem. Usawazi ukuthi wenzeni ngale mali. But the culture of savings, it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one for the country. We need to find a way to actually change our people to really try and save as little as possible.
All right. Precious, you're from Consumer Fair. Ndifuna ukwazi noba abantu bathini in terms of saving. Intoni lenza abantu bangakwazi ukonga imali?
Abantu bayafuna ukusave, but ingxaki iba sekutheni imali ayikho. Yabona, most people are struggling. They don't even have they can't even afford the most basics in life. If you earn 2,000 rand and you work far from home, you know, people will spend at least 40 days on transport alone. It means 1,000 rand you would spend on just commuting between your home and work area. So you can't even afford to pay your school fees for your children, buy basic foods and stuff. So it's very difficult then for you to say you are going to save something. And then the ones that can afford maybe to save, I don't think they have enough information. The basic financial literacy is lacking. I mean, the people like banks and other financial institutions that should be at the forefront educating the consumers about the financial literacy, they are not spending money in doing that. So people don't know. And if you go to the bank operates such that they take more from you. You give them their money, they use it to do their own things. They actually benefit more than you as a consumer. So
That was when
it's very true. And if some of the statements, as banks, we're doing a lot, on consumer financial education. As banks, we are supposed, as per financial sector chart, FSC, we're supposed to spend 0.4% of net profit after tax. 0.4%. This money we've been spending since 2005. Since 2005, we have reached more than 10 million people that we've reached with our education. But the issue that we're actually talking about now, Uti, is our education effective or not? But we're spending money, the money we're spending. And because now we're really trying to see how do we actually go and actually change people's attitudes and behaviors towards money? Because people's attitudes have not changed.
I do want to ask this question from Utsilani, because people are grappling, they need to buy necessities, you can't then just tell them, save, when they will tell you, I don't have anything else. But how do you drill the message of saving when somebody says, I don't have that extra cash to save?
Look, I've had this conversation before, and it's very hard. But I will tell you this. Most of the time, there is something to save. I get into trouble for saying everybody must save. But I will tell you, half the problem is not that you don't have enough, because there will never be enough. I will ask you basic questions. How much do you get in? How much do you have money coming in? How much money is coming in? How much money is going out? Basic questions that I always ask. How much money do you spend on airtime per month? Do you know? Most people don't know. It's just the reflex. As soon as I have run out of airtime, I need to get airtime. They'll get airtime. But they have a budget. There's no budget. Do you know how much is coming in? Do you know how much is going out? How do you then say, I can't save, when you don't know how much is coming in? And these are really basic questions. And if you know how much is coming in, if you know how much you're spending, then you'll know how much you can have as surplus, you know how much is deficit. You know these things. And this month I have a little bit extra coming in. So let's put that away for a rainy day. But we don't do that. As soon as something comes in, we spend it. One of my favorite examples are Stokvels. They are my favorite. I love
We'll talk
those.
about those, but your point before we go to the break is that it's not about the income, but how much you spend. All right, let's hold it there. Ayikembukeli ithi sibambe apho ke sithi ukuthi tsi evengeleni. Kodwa phambi koko ithi ndinikhumbuza ukuba nani ningathabatha inxaxheba kwinkqubo yethu ngokusitsalela umnxeba ke ku-011-714-6918 okanye ku-011-714-6919. I-email address yethu ithi consumer@sabc.co.za okanye ke nisifumane ku-Facebook or Twitter. Please join us after this. Welcome back, Mbukelo. Sabukela inkqubo Yilungelo Lakho. It's your right. Siniphathela yona ngqo apha ku-SABC 1 Mzansi for sure. Please call us on our participation line, and that's 011-714-6918 or 011-714-6919. You can also email your views to consumer@sabc.co.za or catch us on Facebook or Twitter. Phambi koba ke siqhubeke ngencoko yethu, nazi ke i-messages vela kunu nomonde thuswa uthi I really love today's topic because with black people we don't see the need to save, but we love spending on unnecessary things. Surely today's topic will open our eyes and thanks. And then Zamani Mlaba Olundi uhlelo lwanamhlanje ngicabanga ukuthi luzosiza abantu abaningi ngisho nami luzongisiza ukufunda okuningi. Paul T Ramushaba uthi how can you save when you live from hand to mouth? And I suppose that's the question I posed earlier, because I think that's what people are concerned about. I don't know if let's just maybe run through that one again.
Again, there will never be enough. There's never enough money to make. It's knowing the difference between how much is coming in, how much is going out. Budgeting and sticking to your budget is the key. Okay,
so does this not now go back to education about finances?
It does.
Precious?
It does go to education. And the financial institutions, as I had indicated, that they're supposed to be driving this. Mr. Zwane has indicated that, the banks are supposed to allocate a certain percentage of their profits to educate the consumers. But I can tell you now, most consumers still don't know, still don't have enough information, and they don't know where to go to get the information. So they are programs, or they're not focusing much into educating, because I think they actually want a consumer that is not very financial literate, because then they can take advantage. How else a bank would make profit? It makes profit out of us. So for me, that's the key to say if there were institutions that were really are focused and dedicated at educating the consumers, because why must I take my money to the bank and the bank takes my money to an investment house? Why can't I go straight?
Is that information that people get to know about? I mean, uprecious into akhala ngayo yokubana education ayifikelele ebantwini.
Education iyafikelele ebantwini, so because we do this through organizations, through churches, through community-based organizations, NGOs, and etc. That's how we actually take this education to people. People are getting the education, but kukhona esinye isikhathi when people actually engalaleli ngoba efuna something. I can give you an example ukuthi
Tata masibambe apho then xa sesibuya uzonika umzekelo nawo. Sinayo uThembi Buthelezi nophume Hillbrow. Thembi wamkelekile enkqubeni?
Sanibonani kulungelo lakho.
Allo mama.
Ya yazi ukuthi lento yokusave hayi ukuthi mhlambe asibeki imali ngoba singazi. Inkinga yizimo esihlangabezana nawo noma ngabe uyasebenza vele ungasebenza ngeke ngikhulume ngomuntu ongasebenzi ungasave ini. Uthola ukuthi usebenza ama-piece job, abantu abaningi abasaqhashwanga ngokugcwele, imali ugibela ngayo iphele uzushode ngemali yokudla. Engagqugquzela kakhulu ukuthi sifundise abantwana basebancane. Uyabona umntwana mayesakhula umnikeze something noma ama-sweet noma ama-biscuit adayise esikoleni, akusihlazo leyo nami ngakhula ngikwenza lokho even umntana uyakwenza. So leyo madlanyana umfundise ukuthi abeke imali ukuthi ngelinye ilanga ayithengele something yena ngeyakhe imali ayibekile. Uzobona ukuthi makakhula angakwazi ukuthi awaste imali ngento engekho. Leyo nto ayitholayo azenzele okunye okuncane umgcwasele ungumzali ngiyabonga.
Inkosi kakhulu Thembi. Start teaching the children about their money. We used to have piggy banks, you know. What happened to that?
They're still there, actually.
Still
I
have.
know, Basa and ourselves, we still give out piggy banks every time we go into community.
Oh my goodness, I don't see that a lot. And the reason why I'm saying this, because you put your money in there, and the interesting part is you can't take it out.
You cannot take it out.
No, but so the program that we are running now, so which is called Teach Children to Save. So it's a campaign that we started in 2008. To date, we have actually reached 800,000 learners countrywide. And we go to schools and so we ask our bankers and so our staff and so in the banks to volunteer to go and teach for about 60 minutes and teaching children about the needs and the wants, that what is the need, what is the want, and then also teaching them and so about not teaching them to really stay away from material things. That material things are the things that actually make our country so poor. The reason that we don't actually have a good savings culture is because, and so I always want to actually have, why should I actually have an expensive car instead of actually buying a normal car that can take me from point A to point B? Why do you actually have to actually have a BMW or a Mercedes or an Infiniti, whatever? It's not really that the car is better than the little car Kia that can actually take me to work, to and from work. Those are some of the things. And so, but what we are doing and so with kids at the moment, taking for instance, as we go to Mlaleli Betini, go right manje ukuthi ufundise ingane eseyincane ligotshwa lisemanzi gotshwa lisemanzi khona ukuthi ngoma seliqinile ngakusakhona. So our program and so iqala ku grade 4 to 9.
To 9. Okay, sizayibamba apho sinayo uThandi from Senton. Thandi wamkelekile enkqubeni?
Yebo sisinjani?
Ngiyaphila Thandi, kunjani?
Ngiyaphila. Yazi lolu hlelo leni ngizwa ngilithanda and liyasikhuthaza.
Inkosi.
Inkinga yebo ngoba yazi impela imali ayikho, sinenkinga nala sithi sibeka khona imali emabhenki. Uthola ukuthi amabhenki ama-charges maningi ngalendlela exakile kanti nale mali esiyiholayo ayikho. Uthola ukuthi mina nje last month bangicharge 800 and something ama-charges ebhenki. Mangithi ngiyabathi na ama-charges ngokuthi ngoba kunama-debit order adonsayo manje athola ukuthi ke imali ayikho kwi-account yami, so base bengicharge-ke. Manje nokuthi nisifundise nabantwana bethu lokho ngiyakuthanda, ngiyakukhuthaza, fanele befunde nabo ukuthi mabe sebeqala ukusebenza fanele bebeke imali ngoba isimo siyabheda. Siyalibonga kakhulu uhlelo lweni.
Enkosi kakhulu ke Thandi. Xa sesibuyela mhlambi ke ngoku kwincoko besiyiphethe phambi koba siye kuThandi sithethe ngenkqubo yabantwana eniza nayo. You were launching that recently?
Yeah, we're launching that and so every state and so yesterday. kulapho sithola khona ukuthi sifuna ukuthola new methods and new ways of teaching. Ukuthi mhlambe singafani ukuthi nje sihambe siyo emaphambili eclassini and teach, but have a game, and so some sort of a game, ukuba nama game ingane zidlale kube exciting, make it exciting ukuthi khona ukufundisa abantwana nje ukuthi basave imali. So we had ama games and so nange monopoly and ama quiz and so crossword quiz and so on, and all that. Those are actually different ways of actually teaching people and so teaching these young kids and so to do this. The program has been running since I said it has been running since 2008, and Free State is our 7th province.
Okay.
We started in Gauteng, and so we've been moving every year. We move to a different province. So this year we're talking about democratizing youth finance. This is a theme that so we have this year.
All right.
For 2010, and so that is, we're talking about a goal to save. So we're trying to really to push this message, and so to young people would start saving now. And every time we do this, we give them money boxes. We don't use the word piggy bank because it's not actually, it does not resonate well with some religious people, and so then we have to use the right word.
All right. Masibambe Tammy from Kimberley. Tammy, wamkelekile nkubeni?
Hello, kunjani mama?
Yaphila Tammy, kunjani ku?
All right. I just want to comment on the subject matter. I agree 100% with it. The financial institutions are not assisting much in terms of making sure Ukutama consumers they get a better deal, or in terms of allowing them an opportunity to save. It's like a cigarette advertisement where you show the cigarette and then you say it kills your lungs. But at the same time, you say Ukuti abantu bathathelwa imali zibank, but they are saying the need Ukuti no, we are also teaching them to be responsible and safe. They need to work with government to make sure the agenda of government is being fulfilled in terms of social grants. They cannot afford it. They must come up with if you earn very less, your interest in a bank can become lesser, and those that are rich can pay more money as a bank because their social responsibility is only confined to those minorities. And abantu since they are illiterate, they don't have education. At the same time, the banks are not making it easy either for abantu when they go and pay.
All right. For now, let's take another ad break. Please don't go away. We continue our discussion on the culture of saving in South Africa. My guests are Yilungelo Lakho from the South African Savings Institute. South African Banking Association. Sibena Precious Nayana ovela kumbutho lamalungelo abathengi consumer fair. Our last caller touched on what you raised earlier, and I know you're very much passionate about that and still concerned that that message is still not trickling down to consumers, that financial education is still not trickling down to consumers.
The reason is there are initiatives, but I think the people who are supposed to be pushing it, they don't really want us to know much, because then we would know better where to take our money to. Because if you open an account with a bank, a particular bank, the next time you want to do an investment, you go to the same bank. Can you please advise me? Where do they take you? They're gonna only suggest their products. Meanwhile, maybe for your type of personality, you could do well outside the organization, but they're not going to do that. Or they might take your money outside the organization. The interest that you get from outside the organization, it's going to be split between yourself and the bank. And as sure as hell, the bank will always take more interest than you. Like if you were going to get 10%, they will take maybe 6% and only give you 4%.
All right. From SASSI's perspective, I mean, you're an institution that looks at saving. What do you say to that?
I'd say it comes down again. It's as simple as saying education. At the end of the day, banks are businesses. They're here for the simple issue of profit. They're here to make profit. Now, if you as a consumer do not know what products are good for you and how you can get recourse should you get in a way, ill-treated, how you then again fall in through the cracks. You are once again not getting the services you need. Again, you don't know who to go to. Now, I know she's saying that basically there's no information out there. And I know quite the opposite. I know that basically from my own experiences that I do travel the country, that I do go around and I try and I go. And the government has the Office of the Consumer Protector. They invite us almost every month to go to different provinces, to do workshops, to talk, to help people. It always comes down to people hearing you, people understanding you, working out, turning around, and going back to their old patterns and behaviors.
All right, here's some messages. Dinky Prisky says, there's never enough to save. If one receives 300 Rand grant, is unemployed and depends entirely on that, how do you then encourage them to save? Saving is important and it needs to be taught from an early age so that it becomes a way of living. Financial education is vital as well because one will know how to differentiate between needs and wants when buying. It does not matter how much you earn. And I mean, some suggestions that are coming through, Tselani, with regards to the topic that we are looking at today. One was saying that it should also become more difficult for people to access their savings in order to ensure that the money remains where they've saved it.
Well, that's also true, but then it should be harder to access credit as well.
Okay.
It's easier to get credit, to access credit, than it is would be to access your savings, actually. I'll give an example with the 32-day notice account, right? You would have to give a month's notice to get your savings out. But if you were to go to some, let's say, loan shark, you would get it right away. And our people are choosing the easy way out. This is a step-by-step process. It's not a one-day fixed situation. As much as like financial money growing or wealth growing is not going to happen over a month. It's not going to happen over a year. It takes years. It's a process. It's something it's hard. Before I joined SASI, I never had any savings. But once coming into the organization, learning that actually the way I've been living is basically very risky. It's very hard.
I do want to also touch on the fact that people should also be incentivized to save more by getting higher returns on their investments. That was one.
Yeah, I think if we understand and so what's happening in the world and so as banks and so are actually regulated and so by the Reserve Bank and so are regulated by by government and so on how we do things. And we cannot actually give you higher interest and so with less money and so forth. But if you got to give us if you give us better money, so maybe we might actually get so better interest and so and all that. I mean, if you look at some people also that actually come to us and so with their pension money, they will get a better return. And they but so we still actually get so a good return on whatever you're actually putting in and so whatever amount, but you're still getting in so interest on that. You are not just putting money in and so without getting interest. If you look at your stokvel account and so the stokvel accounts actually get interest. If you look at those stokvels, those are some of the things that you can actually do. And if we also actually say, and so as we are teaching young people, if you give them 10 rands a day as money, if that kid can actually save 2 rands. 1 rand is for a donation. We have funded so must actually be able to donate to other poor. And 1 rand is actually one. Another rand is actually put away. Even if so we are short, until is your bank. And if you teach that kid as a man, by the time at Funuktinta Loma Leo, 9 years, by the time I'm 16, I save about 2 rand a day. That kid will be rich. will be having enough money
All right.
to actually look after himself.
So
or
there's
herself.
another group here. There are
Huh?
people who do save, but they save little. Is this bad?
No.
Or it's a start?
Start.
It's a start.
My encouragement is always, look, we would advise save at least 10% of income. And when I say income, I mean everything. You have people that they have sole income, it's just salaries or wages, and then there are people who have businesses. But as little as you can start saving, that's fine. As much as if you are getting 300 Rand from your grant and you can put away something as little as 3 Rand, 30 Rand. People spend more than that on certain things that we wouldn't be considered important, but they don't see that. Do you understand? It's a mindset that's like, I need to have my hair done, but I don't have money to save. And once you start saying, but is it important to have your hair done? You'll find out actually, yes, it is very important to have your hair done. And it's not my job to come and judge on the fact that you think it's important to have your hair done. But I think maybe, I don't know, if you're going to then cut something out, you need to see what can be put out, what can go off the list of your expenditures that this enables you to save.
Precious, as consumer fare, nina intoni eniyenzayo as consumer fare ukwenza le message ikwazi ufikelele ebantwini?
We have our own communication channels. We also have a newspaper. We've also started also an academy where we want to reach the communities and offer financial literacy to the most vulnerable communities. So, and in doing that, we've also started a fund that people can come and invest in, and it has no commission, and it's a saving that if you want to draw your money, you don't have to have a notice. You don't have to wait 32 days. So it's a fund that is very consumer friendly. We've taken into account all the problems that consumers have. I mean, the high interest charges and stuff like that. The only thing you pay is just 1.25%. That is a once-off. It's a management fee once a year, and you will not get a rate better than that. It's just meant for us as the consumers, anyone. And it's very accessible. The minimum you can pay is 300 Rand. If you want to pay a lump sum, it's about 2,000 Rand. It's a sort of like a stokvel type, but instead of drawing out, because stokvel is a big industry, but what happens is come December, people withdraw and pay and use up all their money. Come January, they don't even have money to pay for school fees and things like that. Whereas the industry is worth more than 50 billion. If you just waited 3-4 years, 50 billion a year, if you put all that together as consumers, we can be able to earn so much more assets. We can go into infrastructure, we can trade on the JSE and so forth. So opportunities are limitless.
In fact, when you talk about stokvels, as I was reading somewhere, I found that there was an argument that it's not that people don't save, but they choose informal sectors to do that. So your stokvels come into play.
It's amazing.
All right, we'll come to that. Makesti, please join us after this commercial break. Participation line is 011-714-6918 or 011-714-6919. Email address here to iticonsume@sabc.co.za. You can also reach us on our Facebook page for comment or Twitter. Sinaye uSipho on the line. Sipho, are you there?
Hey.
Hi, Sipho, bunjani?
Ngiyaphila njani sisi?
Ngiyaphila tata.
Ngiyaphila. Ukhuluma noSipho Ndima eMondlo esigodini sakwaMachanga.
Kulungile tata?
Yeah, sisi ngithi mina indlela yokuthi save imali. Ngibona ukuthi kumele sifundisene kuqala izingane lezi esiyigerisa ama100 Rand. Sifundise ingane ukuthi ngekathi uyinika imali 20 Rand, uyitshela ukuthi save imali engaka, uyivulele iaccount ukuthi ithathe 10 Rand, isave kulelo bhange lelo ukuze end of the year ithole something. Ingazi ukuthi imali into yokudliwa kuphela. Ngicabanga ukuthi kumele sifundise izingane kuqala ngokusave imali.
Enkosi kakhulu Sipho. Siyabulela ke. Ukhona ubulelani yena Dzila othi ku Facebook messages sesifumene eyethu imali ithi ifike ingxaki zibe zingaphezulu kwayo. And George Wakamathonsi uthi saving is a good thing to do because it helps in time of trouble. We must save even the small cash we have. That's George Mathonsi, Opumit Deep Kloof Zone 2. We were talking about Stockville just before we went on the break, and I know that you were saying, yes, people do save and they use these informal sectors.
One of my favorite things is when I go to workshops, when you go to communities, first question you ask is, do any of you save? And you get no one that responds, as in like, no, I don't have a savings account, I don't save. And then you ask, how many here have Stockville? And 100% everybody then says, I have one, and then I have one. And they say, yes, that's a form of saving. And it doesn't necessarily mean that because it's a bit informal that it's not saving. And this is what Sasi says. We're not saying people don't completely save. It's just that people save to consume. Come December, everything's finished. So it is saving. The culture is a bit there, but it's also not a long-term kind of place. One of my favorite tricks is the money box.
Not picking back.
The money box. The money box is a great way to start. Because when you throw in change, in a money box, you don't have access to it. But you are putting it something out. It's a trick. It's something to trick your own mind to save a little bit of something.
It also comes back to Sipho's point where he says, even teach the children to do this. You give them money, tell them to save a little bit of that money. But I do want to come back to this issue, Precious, with you in that there's knowledge. You get callers who are talking to us about, yes, this is how we can save. But is there a gap between that information and the implementation process?
Yes, there is, because you can save. Are we talking the saving as in
the saving, because abantu bayayifumana information but save, they know, you know. I'm not talking about people who don't know that there's this financial literacy, but
no, I think there are other factors that affect people that stop people from saving. You know, South Africa promotes the culture of consumption other than saving. I mean, you know, you come to the festive season, it starts way before December. I mean, already in October, people are already like advertising the things you should be consuming your money at, your bonuses and this and that. By the time it's December, it even gets worse. Then we have a break of a month. Then comes Valentine's Day, things like, you know, things are that absolutely not necessary. You know, people, they'll go crazy wanting to buy things, and then there are birthday celebrations, then there's Easter, there's always something, there's Mother's Day, there's Father's Day, you know, those kind of things. They just encourage people to keep spending and spending, and to such a way that it affects their psychology. You know, if it's Valentine's Day and nobody tells you they love you, then you feel like I'm the worthless
or buys you something.
Yeah, exactly. You know, if you are a mother and no child does nothing for you, it's like, oh, I'm not really a good mother, you know, which is like a totally nonsense, because your children might be going through some difficult time and they can actually afford to buy you something, you know. The day that they have something they can appreciate you or just write you a letter other than buying you something, material has taken over our society.
And those are things I suppose we need to encourage, you know, to do things with your hands instead of just wanting to buy all the time.
Yeah, may I come in there? Like, it's not a this is not a South African problem. This is a whole worldwide problem. Materialism is consuming the human race at such a rapid rate, right? But at the same time, it comes down back to the individuals. We all make choices. And I cannot blame the advertiser for the fact that I walked into that shop and bought stuff with money I do not have.
Sinayo Masilela yena from Bram Fisher. Masilela wamkelekile nkubeni?
Sanibona lapha e-studio.
Hello tata.
Ya, nginembuzo nje ngisafuna ukuyibhekisa mhlawumbe lapho kuba kuzwane la.
Okay tata.
Ukuthi abona amabhenki isikhathi esiningi mhlawumbe angazi ngayibeka ngokuthi badlana laba abantu abayibe save kubo engakubeka mhlawumbe for example mina ngisave kubo Old Mutual nabo Holati kanjalo uthola ukuthi ma uthuya baya ebank before imali yakho ingena uthola ukuthi mabefika lapho bathola ukuthi insufficient fund ngoba ukakahola imali kayangena ebank makwenziwa lama reverse charges acharge mina. Why should ukuthi ama reverse charges lawo acharge mina angacharge yona ibank ngoba mina isivumelano sami ngisenze nebank nale inkampani engiseva kuyo ukuthi no thatha imali yakho nge1 yona izofika before nge1 ithola imali ingakangena. Kwenziwa yini ukuthi bekwenze lokho ukuthi benze into efana nalezo angazi noma mhlawumbe yindlela yebucapitalist angifuni ukubeka ngaleyo ndlela ngoba sengizaba ngena kakhulu ku political ngiyabona.
Inkosi kakhulu Tatu Masilela. Tatu Zwane.
Yeah, I think ngiyamuzwa umfowethu ukuthi uthini, but the issue here is that go wrong for that institution to actually come and take money before a hall. If we hold on 25, why should they actually come in and so 24 bars of 30 money? So they must come on the 25, on the 25th. Yeah, now in the bayaka, ufana ukuthi abuyele kuleyo institution yakhe le elokoza debit account yakhe before time. Awulungisa nabo ukuthi no, please don't do this because thina mangakho mali account yakho as an institution, as a bank, we've got rules, nama regulations, and we can't do any other way. Fanele ukuthi sithathe imali yakho sokucharge imali ukuthi so imali ingenile kunganamali accounting.
All right, Inkosi Tatu, for now let's take our last ad break. Hlala kunye nathi mayindawo. Sinamkela kwakhona babukeli siqhubeke ngencoko yethu. Phambi koba siqhubeke sinazi Facebook messages umpilo nxumalo uthi people should learn to differentiate between need and want first. And Loyiso Sabo Lloyd uthi saving money is good and necessary, but people don't think it's necessary to save money. Ayanda Don Tebuzwane says people must stick to their budget by ukuthenga whatever evelayo during the month. Loyiso khona uthi ngicela ubuza basi ngayisave njani imali. We'll come to those suggestions and practical tips that people can use. But another thing that has cropped up when it comes to this saving issue is that young people do not save. Why is it still a challenge for young people to save in the country?
Number one major problem, background. If you come, study shows that if you come from a family that doesn't have that is not financially literate, the chances are you'll go into make these mistakes. You'll start with get your financial loans, go through university, get through university. If you're lucky enough with a bit of debt, but you manage it well, and then you get work, and then you sink deeper into debt, the debt trap, where you end up taking a loan to pay off another loan. You've got store cards, you pay them off with a credit card. And then it becomes a big problem where you can't save because you are in a trap. And then one of the first things we usually say is take care of your debt first, and then maybe it'll lead you somewhere.
Precious, your tips?
Just to the caller from Hillbrow, to encourage the young people, like selling, because you teach them how money works. Saving is one thing, but understanding how money works is very important. So if you save, somebody gives you R1, you go buy 2 sweets, you sell, you make a profit, then next time you can afford to buy 4 sweets, and then that's how you grow. Even in life, that's how you would grow a business. So that's very important that it is the children are taught at an early stage. So that's very important. But my call would go out to corporates, because corporates, they're the ones who encourage young people to start learning, about loans, credits and stuff, like clothes accounts. If you can't afford something, don't buy it. Not unless you are like really destitute, and to look good, you really need to go and borrow something. But often it happens that it's just a fashionable thing. Somebody might have an account in this shop, that shop, for just clothing accounts. They don't add any value, but just to looking good. Yeah. So and the corporates do a lot in encouraging the youth to actually take up those accounts. So they are not teaching them to save, but to consume and get into debt.
No, you can save. These young people must actually be encouraged. But even the parents, we need to actually encourage our parents, abazali, accounts. You can open any account, and so as long as you have an ID number, get your birth certificate in the ID number. with that ID number, and then you start saving. And then you go to a bank, and so the bank will give you a money box. That money box, and so, but you need to actually be disciplined in order to achieve a certain goal. These kids can save for something else. And they can start actually saying that save this and that and that. And one other thing that is happening with us, we as South Africans, we like material things. Zonke lezi zinto ezinama-label, Nike, whatever. Zonke lezi zinto lezi ezenza ukuthi i-youth yethu ingakhona ukusave. Ingabe iyasave i-youth yethu, but because they like all these things, Uzi, whatever, there are all these names, yabo, abafana ukuthi bazithole. And that actually, we should actually discourage them. They can have those things, but they will only have them mabe nemali. They must save money in order to be able to get those things.
Celine, very briefly.
Let me come in there. One of my favorite things is it's necessarily, if you see us women, we work around with big purses. You open up that purse, what's inside? Store cards. You've got every other clothing account in your account. You've got every credit card you can possibly get, and then you walk around with it daily as if that is money. Now children see that and start assuming that that is money. And they think it's money. And they just think you just go to that wall and get money and their problems are solved. So I would say it all starts at home.
All right.
Starts with the parents.
Okay, the change starts with us as well. All right. Haike mawethu ixesha linomona sesifikelele esiphelweni senkqubo yethu yanamhlanje. Let me thank my studio kids for their time. Ndibulele nani babukele ngokuba nathi kude kube lilithuba. Please join us again next Friday for another consumer topic of the week. Ukubukela ke impinda yenkqubo zethu. Please tune into the same channel from 9:30 to 10:30 every Monday morning. From me, Sisanda Jonas and the entire team, it's goodbye. Nibe nexesha elimnandi.
Yilungelo